Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to the Achievers Dialogue on Codes TV. I'm your usual host, Gloria Abnelomusa, Miss G, with my co-host.
Constance Siki. Miss G, we are welcome back to another episode.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to have you here. And we also have our brother with us. I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mawang Kofi Jr. And I'm excited to be on this show with you.
Yeah, so on the previous episode, this was something engaging. So, Miss G, today what do we have?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about language and culture in our education. Language and culture in our education, yes. What was the first language you learned growing up?
I would say in school growing up, the first language I learned was Dangbi. Yes, because of the community I found myself in. It was a Dangbi community, so that was their main language. So that was the first thing, yeah.
See, what's the first language you learned growing up?
For me, I would say I'm not lucky because I learned Ewe for 4 years.
Oh.
No, not for 4 years though. I learned Ewe for some 2 years, and later we moved to our current settlement. So I came here to learn Dangbi for 4 years. So after learning the Dangbi for 4 years, I went to SHS and it ends there.
Oh, so that means you can't speak the language at all?
No, I can speak, but not fluent in that.
Okay, but I think you're fortunate to have had 4 years experience.
4 years.
Some of us, we didn't get the opportunity to learn at all. Yes.
I see.
So, I think it's a nice. But what do you think about languages, these local languages being taught in our schools over English language?
I think it depends on how you look at it. Someone might see learning local languages is not beneficial to you, especially in our modern world, because our modern world, the main means of communication is the English language and probably other foreign languages, which might be beneficial to you. So learning local languages like Chi, Dangbi, and those kind of things doesn't really benefit you. But at the end of the day, for me personally, being able to speak Dangbi and Chi has helped me communicate more with local people, especially when you go to vicinities where there are a lot of people in Ghana who are, the education rate in Ghana is low. So there are some people that are unable to use the English language. So in a situation where you're able to speak the local dialect, it sort of bridges that language gap between you and then someone who is only able to use the local language. So I think, teaching the local languages in our schools is a good thing.
Okay, Ziggy, do you think we should teach it in our schools like we do, or it's something we should scrape off? Because some people complain that it also affects their speaking of language, even when it comes to writing exams and other things. What do you also think about that?
Teaching the local language in the classroom. I'm not to support this what Semawang is doing. Because in a way, the language, you teach most schools teach the local language once a week. So you're teaching that once a week and you want a student to be speaking. So let me ask that quick. Would they be speaking it during classroom activities or when they are with their teachers or when? Let me ask that.
I think usually what we see these days is they having the session, it's like when the teacher comes to class, they speak that language. But in our schools, most of us use English, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
But students go to the far end that they switch from having a conversation with their teachers to their colleagues. It's when it's break time, they use the opportunity to speak their language with their colleagues. So to me alone, it's not that important to teach their local language because it's having effect on them.
Let me interject what he's saying. I don't personally think that that is a problem because personally, from my own experience, I lived in a Dangbi community. I went to school. I spoke English. But then after that, the kids speak Dangbi after school, maybe when during break, when we are having our own time, we speak Dangbi. We can speak English, we can speak Dangbi. I think all that combined helped me learn the language well. So I don't think that really affects your English. It's up to you, the individual.
Sure. So,
but in that way too, that's where they do the direct translation. When it comes to when they have more knowledge about the local languages they are speaking, That's why they do the direct translation from the local language to the
English.
So sometimes when they speak, you think they don't know what they are saying. So you say the grammar is wrong. But it's the local language that is having the effect because they are teaching direct translation.
And then also in our homes too, you think our parents are encouraging these local languages, or usually people speak English when they are with their parents?
Yes.
Hardly do you hear some people speak their local languages with their parents. I don't know about you. What language do you speak with your mom or your dad or your family members?
Usually at home, we speak the local language.
Okay.
But then I do have friends, especially Ewes. I do have friends who can't speak Ewe, but then both parents are Ewes. So that goes to show you that it's not something they are being taught at home. Yeah.
So you'd encourage that we teach it in the school?
Oh, yes.
And after school, will this still continue in the CK?
Oh, yes.
What do you have to say about that? Parents using any other language apart from their local language in communication at home?
You see, when the parents don't engage them in speaking it in their house, it affects them learning it in the school. Because when they come to the school, what they learn is the rules that govern speaking that language. So in the house, they don't know how to speak it well. When they come to the school, they find it difficult to adhere to, let's say, maybe the tenses to use. Okay, because the house is just like a rehearsal. So when they come to school, they go over whatever they are learning and they just implement it in the house.
Okay. But then, is it difficult to actually learn our local languages? Is it difficult, or is this one of the easiest?
It's one of the easiest because the family being the main orientation of speaking language. So if you are the parents or whoever is in the house with you speaks the local language to you, I think learning it in the school is even adding up to it.
Okay, please, what do you have to say?
I think I would agree with him on what he just said because, personally, from my own point of perspective, learning the local language is not difficult. I think it's much more easier because I personally started learning Dangbi and then Chi. And then I realized that there were some things in the Dangbi that I learned that made learning the Chi much more easier for me. So it didn't take much time for me to learn it. So I think learning the local language is really easy. If you have someone to teach you, it's not difficult to learn.
Okay, so in this case, should parents be the first source of learning our local languages, or will still stick to, studying it in the schools? And even if you're studying in schools, what will be the specific language that we are supposed to focus on? Is there any specific language we're supposed to focus on? So I'm asking two questions here. Should parents be the first source of...
I would say we can't really pinpoint one particular source because, for instance, me learning Dangbi, my parents don't speak Dangbi. But then it started with the community I lived in, my friends. The Dangbi people who were in that community, they spoke Dangbi. So the whole thing, so I don't think there's one particular point where you can pinpoint that the learning of the language should start from maybe their parents. The parents might not know a certain language. There's some language, even the Chi, they don't speak Chi with me at home. But it's because of my friends, those that I moved with, and then they were speaking and then I started picking up on certain things. And then also I then learned it in school again. So I think we shouldn't just say maybe parents, but anywhere that we can possibly try to learn the language.
I didn't have to read it. Yes. I will say I will stand on the point that parents should be a major factor, as in the parents are supposed to teach their kids how to speak their language. You see, in the case where let's say language comes to language acquisition, depending on the environment in which you find yourself, will help you to speak a particular language better. So from the house, if the parents are not speaking the local language to you, I don't see the need for it being taught in school for a child to be able to understand it. Okay, so I would say parents play a major role in it, in a child's language acquisition.
Okay, and in the child speaking it after school and in school, what do you suggest? Do you think it's something we should encourage in the school? As in, after the lesson, should they be allowed to speak instead of using the common language we know, English? Should we also allow them to speak the local language, maybe during break time or any other time? Or we should just stick to just the classroom learning and then after school? What do you have to say? What's our take on that?
I think whatever they are learning in the classroom is something that is supposed to affect their daily living, something they will use throughout their lifetime. So learning it in the classroom and speaking it after school, it helps. It's something that will help them. Because they are not just learning it. So when I ask that question back, why are they learning it? They're not learning to speak.
Yeah.
So when they come out of the class, they should be able to speak it, but not take advantage of it in a school setting. Everybody's speaking tree, someone is speaking Dangbe somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's something official. Okay, so durations and let's say the places you find yourself should prompt you to speak a particular language.
Yeah, I'm asking this based on, learners being scrutinized or for speaking vernacular in school and all, they want to stick to one specific language.
Language abuse. They want to speak it because they know how to speak it, so they want to speak it everywhere, which shouldn't be so. Yes, your teacher is asking you a question in class because you learned Twi, and your teacher is speaking English to you, and because you can't bring out the tenses properly in the English terms, you would like to answer or respond to it which is in the local language, which is not good.
But are we also not being political about the language? Like we want to get the English more rather than our local dialect. For instance, like he's saying, if I'm supposed to learn language in school, my parents don't speak Dangbe in school. So the only time I'll get to speak Dangbe is in class or my friends in school. But here's the case, I'm not allowed to speak the Dangbe in the school aside the classroom learning. So something like this, how do I communicate? And maybe my friends, the friends I'm with, they also don't speak Dangbe. So how do we relate? How do we practicalize this language? I don't know if you want to come in on this side. How do we make the local language speaking more effective, or should I say efficient?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this one question I always ask that what do people or schools look at before implementing teaching of a particular local language? Because in a school setting, we have individuals who speak different languages. But what do they look up to before choosing a particular language?
Okay, that's a question to our audience to answer. What exactly should they look out for?
Some say because of the area in which they find themselves, the streets. I don't think that should be some major factors they should look at. Do you get it?
Okay. So yours will be for the learners to be able to speak the language.
To speak the language.
At least at the end of the lesson or at the end of the whole course, they should be able to speak the language. At least communicate or understand.
There are some schools that the learners in the school, most of the majority are Ewes.
Yeah.
But because they are on a Ghana land or let's say a Dangbe land or some land, they choose to learn the local language spoken by the people in the community, which will not be in line with the kids too. And when they get home, their parents are also Ewes. And how would they do their homework when they don't understand it? Do you get it? That's something else on it. I don't know what most schools look at before implementing those things.
What do you also have? What's your take on that part as well? Or you agree with him?
Yes, I do agree with him on most of the things that he's saying. Yes, but what I would like to say is learning the local languages, there should be something that across the country, there should be something that must be fixated, that across the country, okay, we are all learning, every school should teach at least Dangbe and then Twi. Because across Ghana, Twi is sort of like I don't want to say the main language of Ghana. I mean, I know English is a universal language, but then Twi is, anywhere you pass, you get someone to speak Twi with in Ghana. Yes, so you can imagine not being able to speak Twi. You realize that most of these social media influencers that come from outside and come to Ghana, they are speaking the Twi and it sounds funny. So I think Twi, at least Twi, and then maybe some other few local language should be taught across the country. It shouldn't be not based on regions. That may be this Greater Accra region, so it should be Gadangbe, or it's in the Ashanti region, so let's speak Twi. So I think at least some languages should be fixated and taught across all schools in Ghana. That would help.
Okay, and then on the note of teaching with the local language, do you think maybe teaching learners will also, with their local language, will help them understand whatever you are being taught properly, rather than using the English language or any other language? Do you think using their local dialect would
give them
a better understanding?
I personally I can't express myself very well in Twi language. I can go about normal daily stuff, but then I can't express myself because with the words I have accumulated with the English language, the expressions, the way I can express myself in the English language is not the same way I can express myself in Twi. So because of that, I think
you go to the fact that we should use the English or we should use our local language to teach.
I think if the kids are taught using the local language, they'll be able to express themselves more.
Okay. I think I know a couple of people who are actually confident about their language. When it comes to English, they don't want to speak at all because their grammar is not good and all that. So you would stand to the fact that they should use the local language to teach them.
And some students, because maybe some students they speak Twi, they understand they understand the Twi deeply. So if the person doesn't understand something in English, and then so I think the teacher should improvise. So you look at the kid and then look at the way the person would understand it well. So if I'm to use the person's local language and the person would understand it better, then I think it should be something we should adopt.
But then don't you think that's where you give the child the opportunity to also speak their local language? Because in a way, most teachers, they punish their kids for speaking the local language with their kids. But then in this case, we are speaking it with the learner. Don't you think you are being unfair?
Well, I think to get something, you have to sacrifice something. Right? We are trying to bring understanding into the picture.
Okay.
Right? And the child doesn't understand. The child would only understand if you use the local language. Right? So then you have to sacrifice the child having to use that to be able to attain the understanding the person needs. Yeah.
Okay, so in this way, that will be a one-on-one something. It's not like a mass.
Yes.
Oh, but what if maybe that one can be an advantage to someone in that way? But let's say you are explaining something to the class you are teaching, and you notice one particular student is not getting it. Will you call that student aside to speak the local language? I don't think that's how you do it, but you rather it to be general. And that one too, that's what I'm saying. You are giving the kids the privilege to speak the local language.
But then, if I quite so remember, you were making mention that the local languages should actually be the kids should be encouraged to speak the local languages.
Yes, encouraged to speak. But then in this case, when they're speaking it outside the class, let's say during break time, and most teachers, that's what they do when they meet them one-on-one.
Yeah.
Or when they are caught in the act of speaking vernacular, or they punish them.
Yeah.
They don't speak vernacular. But then in the classroom, we are teaching it, and we are even using it as a means of explaining something to them. That's what I'm trying to ask, whether it's unfair or what is
I personally, I don't have an issue with it. I think it should be something that should be normalized. Yes. At the end of the day, if you, as an individual, want to learn the language and understand it, I think if you have an issue with English and you actually want to sit down and learn the English language and understand it and be able to speak well, I think you would do that. So I think students should be allowed to express themselves in whatever language that they choose to.
If I get you, understanding is key.
Understanding is key.
Sure.
So in this case, you are not choosing one language over the other language. No. So everybody's allowed to speak any language on campus.
Yes.
So we just come, the OS group, those who can understand a way they speak their language. Is that the case? And then there's going to be chaos. There's going to be chaos. But I also believe that in the point of teaching with the local language, there are people who don't really get the English very well. So in that case, we can allow them to, you know, we can give them the opportunity to also understand whatever is going on in their local language. But coming to the teachers, in the case where the teacher also do not know these local languages, how can they help these learners? Or how can these be encouraged? Because the teacher doesn't understand any. So does it mean teachers should also learn diverse languages? Because there will be different languages in your class.
Yes.
So with the teacher as well, how can they also help this?
I would say here in Ghana, it's quite uncommon to see that maybe a teacher can only speak the English language. Yes, because it's quite uncommon to see. Maybe it's rare.
Maybe there may be somebody.
But then it's rare to see a teacher. It's only English language you can speak. But then also, what I think the schools have done is they are language teachers, right? They are teachers that teach French. They are teachers that teach Twi. There are teachers that teach Dangwe, to be specific. So I think what the schools have done is also a good thing by getting teachers that are that specialize in one particular language.
Okay, so do you think teachers should be trained to teach? Because let's say a maths teacher or let's say a science teacher comes to class and is trying to explain, let's say photosynthesis or something, and the child is not getting whatever is going on in the English language. How? And in this case, the teacher doesn't know how to speak the language of this learner. How will he be able to communicate it or make the child understand whatever he's teaching? So should they be taught?
No.
Yes, okay, you want to
Let me add up to you something.
Okay.
You see, using the language or the local language to explain context is not the only classroom strategy. So as a teacher, if you have various classroom strategies, when you're explaining something to a learner and it's not going well, it doesn't mean you should adhere to maybe using a particular language or a local language, no. Did you get it?
Yeah.
So in a way, if you try to say we are using the local language as a means of explaining context to learners, it won't help, because there are numerous ways or different ways of explaining things to learners. So from where I stand, the understanding is key. Okay, so the best way a teacher can be able to explain something, she just try and get various ways of doing that. That's what I can add up.
Okay. Do you have any take on that?
I perfectly agree with what he said. Understanding is key. So my aim is to, whatever thing I would do to try and make you understand. Like he said, there's not only maybe switching language that you can use as a strategy.
Yeah.
You can use other things. There are technological tools like we discussed previously in the other episode. Technological tools, hands-on practice. You expose them, they can see it visually and know that, okay, this is what we are talking about. So I think there are several means several strategies you can adopt to try to make them understand. It's not only the language.
Okay, so we are wrapping up. Before we go, your few words, do you have anything to say in relation to languages being taught in our schools? Do you think that schools should adapt to this teaching of languages? And is there any specific language that the teachers who teach or schools or management should adapt to?
Yes, I would say students should be allowed to express themselves in whatever language that they can, especially in school setting. Because here in Ghana, a teacher sees a student speaking vernacular, they will beat you, or you'll be punished for speaking vernacular. So I think that we should change, or we should learn to adopt. We should change that attitude. And at least here in Ghana, Twi is I would say universal language in Ghana. So I think at least if you can't speak any local language, Twi should be one of the things you should learn.
See.
I have some few ways to add up to it. So let's say, I would say the teachers shouldn't adhere to using only language as a means of explaining context to their learners.
Sure. Thank you so much. I believe we had a wonderful session. Thank you for joining us. Same time, we'll see you once again.